I mentioned in part 1 of this video that if we feel like we're being controlled in our lives, then it is our responsibility to change it. Well, to be honest, I lived a good portion of my life feeling like a human puppet. And over time, God helped me to realize that I chose that life. I chose to play victim instead of changing things, and I would just wish for the other people around me to change instead of me changing it myself. And that's because I was afraid to set boundaries. Setting boundaries has everything to do with us enforcing our rights. And I didn't want to do that because I knew that then I'd have to be assertive sometimes. I'd have to say no sometimes and speak up for myself. And I was afraid to do those things. And I was afraid for 2 main reasons. Number 1, I was afraid of conflict. I was bullied as a child, and I won't get into that story right now. But the bottom line is, I knew that the way I was being treated was wrong. But I thought that if I stood up for myself, then I would experience worse treatment. So I rationalized in my mind that if I didn't stand up for myself and I just accepted the treatment, that I would really be helping myself out in the long run by not making things worse by speaking up. And I carried this mindset throughout different situations in my life. I allowed people to do and say things that I knew I wasn't okay with, but for the sake of not starting conflict or avoiding conflict, I let it go. I just accepted it. I just allowed it to happen and enabled that behavior to continue. I tell myself things like, I'm just turning the other cheek, being a good Christian, when really I was just being a doormat. But that was what I was used to. So ironically, that felt more comfortable to me than speaking up for myself. But all this mindset did was create a controlling dynamic in my life where people would do and say anything to me and I would just bear it. Even though I didn't like it, I would just relinquish the power I had to stop it. Secondly, I was afraid of jeopardizing relationships. Technically, this of course has to do with conflict, but it's a step further where I felt like there were people in my life that I valued and respected, and I didn't want them to be mad at me, or I was afraid that they would abandon me if I just didn't do what they wanted me to do. And in this case, the people in my life meant well, but they were just pushy. And a lot of times they would get me to do things that I didn't agree with or just didn't want to do, or it wasn't the right timing for me to do. For example, pushing me to answer questions just because they asked, trying to control my time, or trying to invade my privacy. But the thing is, I have a right to not answer every question asked of me. I have a right to control my own time, and I have a right to my privacy. But I was afraid that if I said no, it would lead to me jeopardizing the relationship. These were just my 2 personal reasons, but I know a lot of people who don't want to set boundaries for other reasons, like they feel guilty to, or they just haven't been taught how to set healthy boundaries. However, living like that, not setting boundaries, is very unhealthy. It makes us feel like we don't have any say in our own lives. And during my prayer time with God one day, it really came to me, is it benefiting me to live like this? No, it's not. And here's the thing, we don't have to respond ugly. We don't have to respond out of offense or anger, because then that wouldn't be right either. However, we do have to respond. Setting boundaries is an act of self-love. We are telling ourselves that we are someone worth protecting, defending, caring for, and respecting. And ironically, what will happen is when we start treating ourselves with this kind of love, other people will fall in line. Some may not, but maybe they just weren't meant to be in our lives. So if you've had any personal issues setting boundaries in your life, do what I did and ask yourself the same question. Is it benefiting me to live like this? And if the answer is no, then I suggest that you start developing some healthy boundaries. And I actually have something that will help you do that. Click the link in the eye that just popped up here or in the description box below and download my personal boundaries workbook. There are many different kinds of boundaries that we can set in our lives. So the workbook contains some of the main categories of boundaries, as well as a little description of what each one is and an example. And what I want you to do is write on the lines below each category a set of personal boundaries that you're willing to set for others. So please click the link below or in the eye and start setting yourself some boundaries. And once you've started writing down some boundaries, please share one in the comments below. I would love to hear what you've come up with. It may be something that I need to apply to my own life. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video and subscribe to this channel, because this community is all about helping you know your worth so that you can change your life for the better and hopefully change other people's lives as well. And with that being said, I hope to see you guys in my next video.